Hey there, everybody. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, and I'm expecting to get more plants in today. So, one of my projects this morning is to build out a little bit more bed space. I'll back up a little bit to give you guys some context. We are up in the yard. I apologize for the wind. We're in the middle of the orchard, and so this is where the New Jersey tea and a pear are, and that is the Nanking cherry with its anchor plum and the hazelnut behind it. And so we are encroaching into the lawn some more and making this more snaky as well. And what I'd like to do is bring it more on contour along this way. As you can see, kind of the slope. Well, maybe you can't, but there's about a 19% grade here. So we want to build out a little bit more across the contour. And so what we're doing, all of this under the hay, I'll pull some of this back, is biochar from one of our last rounds of burn. And so I've walked this a bunch, I've stomped around on it, and I've crushed it up pretty good. I laid some hay down on it just to keep some of the smaller bits from flying away, and then the hay started flying away. So I dumped a little bit of the soil from the bags behind us on here just to help pin it all down. But now I am ready for the next phase, which is adding cardboard to this to help be a weed suppressant and a grass suppressant. And then once that cardboard is down, this is pure liquid disgusting. This is some of the muck from the bottom of the duck pond. As you may be aware, we muck the pond every spring to kind of bring some fertility to the garden beds and to shore up the glaying of the pond itself as it matures and we can expand it. And so this is about 6 gallons of water to about 4 shovelfuls, and this is just a standard garden shovel. I will probably end up doing what Sean from Edible Acres does and getting another one of these and drilling some holes in it so that mucking the pond way down there is a little bit easier. But so we're gonna lay this down, and I'll try to show you guys the steps as we build out this bed, and then I'll take a quick pause and we'll hope for plants to come in soon, and I'll show you the whole thing. So stick around. One thing to remember when you're putting down all of your cardboard is to keep track of where the breaks or the lines or gaps are and make sure to overlap them. You can see me doing that here, stepping them down, just double checking to make sure that everything is lining up well and I'm not going to have too many gaps to have to deal with later on in the season. And then stirring the liquid disgusting and just kind of dropping it on there, and it's really sticky and it'll stay put. We just kind of spread it out afterwards. So yeah. So all that muck is soaking into the cardboard. We'll be helping to keep it moist, which will allow it to break down more quickly. And the extra nutrient in the effluent is hopefully going to be a sort of biological calling card in addition to the compost that I will now be covering this with before trucking over some soil. So yeah, I'm going to get back to dumping it. We'll go back to a time lapse for you, see what's going on. Opinions vary on how much you have to deposit on top of the cardboard layer in order to effectively sheet mulch, but it depends on the species that you're dealing with on your site. For us and the species of grasses that we have, about a foot in overall depth is good for us. So a few inches of high-value compost in a state of decomposition that's not necessarily finished underneath the pad of soil is going to be what works best for us, but I encourage you to explore what would be necessary in your space and experiment. So we've got a decent 2 to 3 inch layer of mid to unfinished compost. I've noticed a few potatoes in there and 1 or 2 cherry tomatoes that haven't broken down, and that's it's honestly all right for me. If the potatoes take off, great. If the cherry tomatoes take off and increase the amount of photosynthesis going on in this little block, great. Love it. I'm totally into it. So the next step is going to be filling up that wheelbarrow from the grow bags way up there and trucking some of that over. And then after that, I'll be taking some of the very coarse wood chips and building up the edge around this whole thing up to the level where the soil is, and then capping it so that when I do plant my plants that are arriving, I will have like a nice uniform-ish looking bed. And yeah, it'll continue from this guy. So I'm going to get working on the soil movement, and I'll check in with you guys a little bit later. I will have to skip doing the time shift, the time lapse, because the phone battery is dying and the phone itself is overheating. So this is going to go on the charger while I truck soil. Back in a jiff. Hey there, everybody. We are back. I couldn't stop myself from working while the phone was charging, so I have gone ahead and mulched everything, as well as installed some plants that showed up. But if I remove this layer of mulch real quick, you can just see it's gotten a little dry on top. There is still some residual moisture down bottom, but I've just thrown some of this leftover hay on top. And yeah, there are 20 Marat de Bois. Hang on. Let's check the bag. Marat de Bois. That's what's in here. There are 20 of them in here, as well as 2 huckleberries. I'll show you the tag for this guy real quick so you can see. This is the Michigan black huckleberry. And so the other thing that I have done is I took some of the seeds from one of the bone set, which is Eupatorium perfoliatum, from a little further past that plum there, and I also scattered all of the bone set seeds in the bare soil after I had installed the shrubs and the strawberries. So we'll see what comes up from there. I've also gone ahead and run my wood chips around the edge. I have one last trip to make just to do this little section here. And so one of the things is that I did punch holes underneath both of the huckleberries through the soaked in cardboard, and that's to allow their roots to penetrate and also to allow a little bit more to come up through and helped us to intermix. And that's going to be, the ground biology, the worms, the beetles, probably, if I'm being honest, some of the voles that must still live in this area. And the other thing I've been doing, I'll show you one of these buckets. There is a crack at the bottom of this bucket. There are some holes drilled in the bottom of this one, and likewise for the last. And so what I did is I just set them on top of the hay and filled them each with water and let it slow perk down into the garden beds just to give a little bit more hydration to the center of it and where the plants are. I'll come back through probably tomorrow and water this again just to make sure that everybody's happy. Let me show you one other thing, and that'll be it. We're currently up by the farmer's wall, and while this particular set of project didn't really fit the theme necessarily very, very strictly, we are still getting rid of some lawn up in this area as well. And so what I did, starting over there where you can see that bucket and the other bags, I have dug out little spots in between, and I have planted in wild Canadian ginger, that's Asarum canadense, as well as 2 different varieties of hostas, because I love hostas. And so right in here you can see one little shoot right in that leaf right there. is a sprig of Canadian ginger getting ready to pop. And then if I come over here, there is a hosta planted somewhere in there. And then another little Canadian ginger. And then another hosta that I left peeking out so you could see it. And so these guys will just form a little bit more of a border in between the lawn and where we have the forsythia, as well as the amelanchier and some linderas and some haskaps. And I'll be installing a few more of the aronia that I have in here later on in the season, and we'll talk about that soon. But so yeah, I have a few more of the strawberries to pot up, and I will show you guys that once that's all done and tuned up and looking nice and filling out. But so yeah, that is the addition to the uphill food forest, getting rid of a little bit more lawn. And say, let's walk it. So it's like 8 by 12, 8 by 13, so another 90-ish square feet of lawn erased, converted over to perennials, and we will have more and more annuals, I'm sure. Once this kind of flattens out and things start popping through, I'll probably come in and transplant a few more things in here as it matures. But yeah, even since the other day, we have some lemon balms coming up again now, as well as, they might be a little hard to see, I'll try to get out of the sun for you, some good King Henrys popping up. I have another little cluster right over in here. So things are popping up, things are moving, things are shaking, and I'm excited to share what goes on this year with you folks. But that's going to do it for us today. I hope this gives you a way to not be too daunted by setting up a garden, because yeah, manure is relatively easy to find. Compost can be made pretty cheaply, and if you have a tree crew operating in your area, an appliance store, pet store, you can get the cardboard for free too. So I think a lot of this is accessible. Maybe the fine details of it are particular to us, but I'm sure that with a little ingenuity, you guys could come up with a local, adaptable, inexpensive solution for yourselves as well. So yeah, hope that inspires you to go start a garden, take out some lawn. Until next time, thanks for watching. Happy planting.